the car and across the face of his driver. Keefe D turns around to hand the gun to the back seat, attempting to give it to DeAndre Smith, who would be in the best position to shoot. DeAndre resists, puts his hand up and says, "Nah, no thanks, not me."
I gave it to Dre, and Dre was like, no. And Lane's like, dude, fuck, dude.
It is getting very, very hot for Sean P. Diddy Combs. Reportedly, documents filed by prosecutors who are investigating the Tupac Shakur murder, which at this point took place almost 30 years ago. Prosecutors reportedly named P. Diddy 77 times in those documents. The U.S. Sun reports that Combs has been accused by Dwayne Keefe D. Davis of paying, or at least promising to pay, and perhaps even paying $1 million for Tupac's assassination back in 1996. The Sun says it is not yet known if Diddy will be subpoenaed or indicted as part of the murder case, because prosecutors are hoping to finally obtain justice for Tupac, but still have not led on as to whether or not Diddy was part of the murder. Now, in the latest round of documents, the documents reportedly state, quote, task force detectives believed they had jurisdiction to investigate a Nevada homicide because defendant asserted that the conspiracy to commit the murder began in California between defendant Eric Zip Martin and Sean Combs. Now, this is referring to Los Angeles homicide detectives or California police. You may wonder, well, if Tupac was killed in Nevada, he was killed in Las Vegas, Nevada, how is it that a California police department would be investigating? After all, that's where Keefe D lived. Well, apparently the conspiracy to kill Tupac occurred in California. At least that's what the allegation says, and that it involved Eric Zip Martin, who is now deceased, and Sean Combs.
You're right. There's also, you go into the book, that apparently there was supposed to be $1 million that Zip was supposed to bring back, but he ended up keeping the money and buying a nightclub with it.
That's what the FBI said.
The FBI said that.
Yeah.
As you can see from this interview, Keefe D is insinuating that there was a $1 million bounty on Tupac. Of course, Keefe D, having his background into street life and being a so-called gangster, he doesn't want to put his name on that information, so he blames it on the FBI. But how would the FBI have known about this? Apparently, Keefe D had been working with the FBI or with law enforcement for years. So instead of taking claim of the information himself, Keefe D blames the revelation of the $1 million bounty on the FBI. Now, in another clip, Keefe D also says that after Tupac's passing, Combs called and asked, "Was that us?" This would implicate that Combs not only knew about his passing, which at that point maybe had not even been public, but maybe it had, but Combs also had some kind of pre-existing notion or pre-existing arrangement or pre-existing agreement that something should happen to Shakur.
In the book, you said the third day after getting back from Vegas, you guys met up with Zip in L.A.
At Wingstop.
At Wingstop.
Yeah. Not Wingstop, but Hot Wings. LA Hot Wings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess you said that Puffy called and said, "Was that us?" And you didn't say nothing.
I didn't say nothing. Yeah.
It seems that perhaps there is some animosity between Keefe D and Sean Combs, as Keefe D would go on to say that after Tupac's murder, not only did he, Keefe D, lose everything, apparently Keefe D had a very thriving, if illicit, business before Tupac got killed. But not only that, but that P. Diddy maybe hung him out to dry, and he believes that that was the reason he lost everything.
Yeah.
You guys never got any money.
Never.
for anything.
Nothing. Not even a pair of Sean John drawers. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. It seemed like Puff do that though. He seemed like every time some bad shit go around here, it look like it's some shit on the grass. He don't step around that shit. He get away from that bullshit.
So now it appears that Puffy is implicated in the murder of Tupac Shakur. Let's talk through a couple of potential scenarios just to kind of get an idea of the lay of the land. First of all, Keefe D himself did not ever admit to pulling the trigger of the gun that resulted in Tupac's passing. So Keefe D has said that he passed the gun to his nephew named Orlando, and that his nephew pulled the trigger.
The car and across the face of his driver. Keefe D turns around to hand the gun to the back seat, attempting to give it to DeAndre Smith, who would be in the best position to shoot. DeAndre resists, puts his hand up and says, "Nah, no thanks, not me."
I gave it to Dre, and Dre was like, no. And Lane's like, dude, pop, dude.
Now, in most jurisdictions, if you pass the gun to somebody who pulls the trigger, you're going to be implicated in the murder. That, at the minimum, would be felony murder. So he would certainly be on the hook for Tupac's murder. But now the question would also be, if Puffy puts money in the streets and then something happens to Tupac after that, now prosecutors may be tasked with putting together the money that's in the streets with what happened. So we can't necessarily say that just because Puffy put money in the streets that he would be implicated in the murder. Putting a hit out on somebody in and of itself is a crime. Is there sufficient evidence to prove that? Perhaps, because published reports also indicate that Keefe D, after the Tupac passing, Keefe D went and met with Puffy, and that there may be recordings of what the conversation between the two, and that Puffy may have implicated himself as far as putting the money in the streets. But prosecutors will also have to prove that the bounty on Tupac was the proximate cause of Tupac's passing. In other words, the simple fact that there's a bounty on Tupac in and of itself may be a crime, but in order to link someone to Tupac's passing due to the bounty, prosecutors will likely have to prove that the bounty was the proximate cause of the events that led to Tupac's passing. So at this point, things are heating up for Diddy. It definitely looks like he's in big trouble and will probably be indicted soon. He has all kinds of problems, including potential drug-related charges, trafficking-related charges, minors, and now this Tupac thing. So we're going to wait and see when the actual facts come out, but it's looking bad for Diddy.